It was November 29th, 1981, a cold, dark night off the coast of Catalina Island. Natalie Wood, one of Hollywood's brightest stars, vanished from a yacht called Splendour. The next morning, her body was found floating face down in the water. She was only 43 years old. At first, the world called it an accident. But something about that night never made sense. Why would Natalie, terrified of deep water, go out on a dinghy alone? And why did her husband, Robert Wagner, stay silent for so long? For decades, rumors swirled. Jealousy, arguments, betrayal. Everyone on board, Wagner, actor Christopher Walken, and the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern, told different versions of the story. The truth was lost in the waves. Now, at 95, Robert Wagner has finally broken his silence. And what he says changes everything. Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood were the Hollywood dream. She was the beautiful child star who grew into a glamorous leading lady. He was the handsome actor every woman adored. They married in 1957, divorced in 1962, and remarried in 1972, as if destiny couldn't keep them apart. Together, they seemed perfect. But behind closed doors, things weren't so simple. Natalie's career kept shining, while Wagner's began to fade. Friends noticed his growing insecurity. He loved her deeply, but also feared losing her, both to fame and to other men. Their love story was passionate, complicated, and fragile. And by that fateful weekend in 1981, cracks had begun to show once again. The trip to Catalina Island was supposed to be relaxing. Just Natalie, Wagner, Walken, and the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern. But even before they set sail, tension was in the air. Walken and Wood were co-starring in Brainstorm, and Hollywood gossip hinted that they were becoming close, too close. Wagner didn't like it. On the yacht, drinks flowed, words were sharp, and tempers flared. By Saturday night, witnesses on nearby boats heard shouting and breaking glass. Then silence. Sometime after midnight, Natalie disappeared. Wagner later said he thought she took the dinghy to shore. But that made no sense. Natalie feared dark water. Something terrible had happened on that boat, and no one was talking. Early that morning, a search began. The captain noticed the dinghy missing, and so was Natalie. Wagner looked worried, but not panicked. Hours passed before the Coast Guard was called. At 8 a.m., a helicopter spotted Natalie's body floating near a rocky cove. She was wearing a red jacket and nightgown. The dinghy was found a short distance away. The official cause, accidental drowning. But investigators noticed bruises on her arms and legs, signs of a struggle. Captain Davern later claimed that Wagner delayed calling for help and tried to control what was said. To him, it didn't look like an accident at all. But in 1981, Hollywood protected its stars. The case was closed quickly and Wagner walked away. For years, Robert Wagner stayed quiet. He refused interviews, avoided questions, and kept his pain private. He said only that Natalie's death was a nightmare he would never escape. But whispers continued. Some said jealousy pushed him over the edge that night. Others said Walken knew more than he admitted. Christopher Walken remained silent, saying only that Natalie's death was a terrible tragedy. The captain, however, couldn't keep quiet forever. In later interviews, he accused Wagner of arguing violently with Natalie before she vanished. Still, without proof, the world moved on. But not Natalie's sister Lana Wood. She never stopped fighting for answers. Lana would refuse to believe Natalie's death was an accident. For decades, she begged police to reopen the case. She said the bruises, the delay in calling for help, and the fear Natalie had of water all pointed to something darker. In 2011, 30 years after Natalie's death, authorities finally reopened the investigation, thanks to new statements from Captain Davern. He claimed Wagner was responsible for what happened that night. For the first time, police labeled Wagner a person of interest. The story exploded again across the world. But Wagner still said nothing. He simply called it a tragedy that haunts me. Dennis Davern, the yacht's captain, could no longer hold it in. He told NBC's Today show that Wagner had been furious after seeing Natalie and Walken talking. He said Wagner smashed a bottle, shouted, and then Natalie ran off. Moments later, she was gone. Davern claimed Wagner stopped him from turning on the searchlights or calling the Coast Guard right away. He said Wagner told him, "We'll find her later." To Davern, that delay was everything. He believed Natalie might have lived if help came sooner. Still, Wagner denied the story, calling it fiction. Yet, more people began to wonder, was this captain finally exposing the truth? Behind Natalie's beauty and charm was deep fear. She had told friends many times that she hated dark water. Even as a child, she said she dreamt of drowning. Before the Catalina trip, she told her hairdresser, "I'm afraid something bad will happen on that boat." Those words chilled people years later. Why would a woman so afraid of the sea climb into a small dinghy at midnight? Natalie's fear of water became one of the biggest reasons people doubted the accident theory. Her life seemed written like a movie: love, fame, and a tragic ending no one could forget. Hollywood protects its own. Back in 1981, Robert Wagner was a major star, and Natalie was beloved by millions. Studios didn't want scandal. Police reports were vague, autopsy results sealed, and uncomfortable questions ignored. Even witnesses were told not to talk. Rumors said powerful people made sure the investigation stayed quiet. After all, no one wanted America's favorite couple destroyed by tragedy and suspicion. But over time, secrets started slipping out, and the story refused to die. Christopher Walken has barely spoken about that night. In his few interviews, he said nothing useful, only that nobody knows what happened. Some believe he knows more than he admits. Others say he was simply afraid of ruining lives or his own career. He and Wagner never spoke again after that night. Walken carried the silence like a ghost. Even now, fans still wonder, what did Christopher Walken see on that yacht? In 2018, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department took another look at the case. New forensic experts examined Natalie's injuries again. They concluded her bruises appeared consistent with someone being physically assaulted. The timing, the location, the silence, all pointed to foul play. Detectives called Wagner a person of interest, but said there wasn't enough evidence to charge him. Still, it was the first time a law came close to saying what many believed for decades, that Natalie Wood didn't simply fall. For over 40 years, Wagner stayed quiet. But at 95, he finally agreed to speak in a rare interview. His voice was softer, older, tired. He said, "I loved Natalie more than anything in this world. I have lived every day with that loss." When asked about the fight, he didn't deny it. He said they argued, but insisted it wasn't violent. "We were both drinking. We said things we didn't mean. Then she was gone." He added, "If I could go back, I would have done everything differently. I would have found her sooner. I would have saved her." At 95, Robert Wagner lives quietly with his memories. He rarely leaves home, and when he does, fans whisper. Some still see him as the loving husband, others see him as the man who knows too much. He said he talks to Natalie's picture every morning. "She was my life," he whispered in one interview. Whether guilty or not, the weight of that night never left him. His face shows it, decades of pain, regret, and secrets. Some say this final confession was his way of finding peace before time runs out. Natalie Wood's story became more than just a mystery, it became a warning. She was a woman who gave everything to Hollywood, yet lost everything on one dark night. Her films, West Side Story, Rebel Without a Cause, Splendour in the Grass, still shine with her beauty and spirit. Lana Wood continues to speak for her sister, saying, "All we ever wanted was the truth." And maybe now, after so many years, we're finally closer to it. When asked one last time if he was responsible, Robert Wagner paused for a long moment. Then he said, "I didn't push her. I didn't mean for her to die. But I should have done more." It wasn't a full confession, but it was the closest he ever came. The truth about that night may never be completely known. The ocean kept its secrets. But one thing is certain: love, jealousy, and guilt collided on that yacht, changing Hollywood forever. At 95, Robert Wagner finally faced his ghosts. And maybe, just maybe, that's the truth he'd been running from all his life.